2 hours. At least 2 hours is all it takes, in my opinion, to decide whether or not a game is for you and if it's something you want to see until those end credits roll. That's what these Game Pass reviews are all based on. Is it worth your time? Is it worth all of your hard drive space? Is this something worthy of the Game Pass service? We answer those questions today as we look at the Xbox exclusive Redfall. This category may not be the most important one to decide a game's worth, but ultimately, how a game sounds is what follows you from the start to finish, so you better hope there's some decent music and solid sound effects. In this case, it's not that impressive. I know a game has resonated with me when I fondly remember parts of the soundtrack, or how certain weapons or objects in the game sound. Redfall sadly doesn't have that for me. The music is pretty generic when I expected at least some dark synthwave tracks a la Stranger Things. The voice acting for the most part, even with the main characters, is shaky and the weapons sound fine, but there's nothing here that really stands out. I like to keep these reviews around the 5-minute mark. If I go off on a tirade about how the developers locked this game to 30 frames per second, and I was thinking just weeks before release, that could turn into hours. Still, that's a disappointment before the game is even installed on your PC or console. When you do fire the game up though, you'll be met with the pretty okay setting of the town of Redfall. I can't say that much of what I saw was memorable, but at the very least I did enjoy the vampire designs, and there was some good variety in those that you face. The human cult enemies on the other hand look like they come straight out of the Clone Wars, with a real copy and paste approach adopted. It's been reported heavily that there's a lot of texture issues, especially on console, but over on PC where I played the game, I couldn't avoid them either. I often had stuttering and lag at times when the action got heavy, and I even booted up the console version to see if this was just my PC specs that caused it, but the same story over there as well. With its AAA status and lengthy delay, I really had hoped this would come out looking amazing. Sadly, it'll look perfectly placed on the Xbox One console. With 4 playable characters to choose from, I wish I could say it'd be worth jumping back in after completing the game. Sure, you'll be able to play through the game from a new perspective with a brand new skill tree, but you'll be playing the same missions all over again, and I'm not so sure if anybody would actually want to. Co-op is a marked improvement on going alone in the campaign, and playing with a few buddies will definitely add some longevity to this game as you slay vampires together. Be warned though, that if you join a friend's game, your own progress will not be saved. This is usually the first category I cover when it comes to these reviews, but I have a lot to say and it's the most important element of deciding whether this is for you. So here it is. Redfall is dull and boring. And you know what? It pains me to say that as my hopes were high for this game. Everything is incredibly generic, from the world traversal through to the missions that are all uninspired. Fetch quests are going to play a huge part in your playthrough. There is some variety, and on the whole, I did actually enjoy the safe house submissions, but the repetitive nature will turn this game into a chore. The gunplay is pretty decent and fun, but having played Arkane's Deathloop, the combat had a template to turn this into a home run, but it was criminally struck out. Killing vampires though was always a good time, and jabbing them with the stakes never ceased to be satisfying. Getting to the point of being able to deliver that killer blow wasn't all that painful either, as I had a good choice of weaponry to choose from to blat down their health bars. The AI in this game is really poor. The game makes it clear early on that you can approach each mission differently, all guns blazing or by using stealth. None of that matters when the enemies barely react to anything that you do. There were times when I went fang to fang with a vampire and they didn't even acknowledge that I was stood there. I could have breathed the remnants of the garlic bread I had with dinner and they wouldn't have even flinched. It's inexcusable and really gives this AAA game a real indie feel. An unfinished indie feel at that. This is a looter shooter through and through, and that's its only identity. This could have been a pretty good mix of both Deathloop and Left 4 Dead, but instead it's a mix of disappointment and misguided decisions. Full transparency, I played this in 3 parts over the course of 7 to 8 hours. The first hour or so of the game I actually really enjoyed, and I started to doubt what all of the critics and my fellow gamers were saying. But then came the bugs, and the repetitive gameplay, and the frustration of what could have been. This was it. This was the game that could have set Xbox's momentum in a positive direction. They could have silenced the naysayers and at the very least show that Xbox is well and truly back in form. All we have now is doubt. Increased doubt, in fact, from the knowledge that this game was delayed to ensure it was a finished product. But that's just it. It all feels unfinished. It's inexcusable. Amongst the skeleton of Redfall, a good game really does exist. I had genuine fun in some parts of the game. Maybe a further delay should have been the way to go, 60 frames per second would have been the norm, as it should be in 2023, and the game could have released with fewer bugs and more complete and rounded gameplay experience. It's now normalized that Xbox fans are left disappointed after each major milestone, and Xbox's timeline just keeps on coming up short. The concern for Starfield is now very much real. Xbox needed a win after a rough couple of years and off the back of the CMA's decision to block their Activision Blizzard acquisition. In an alternate universe where everything went right, I'd be telling you to get on Game Pass right now and download this game and play it to completion. Unfortunately for us, that timeline does not exist, and Redfall has pushed this stake firmly into the heart of Xbox and all those who hold the green brand dear. I hope you enjoyed today's review, and if you want to see more reviews on this channel of Xbox Game Pass games within that service, all you have to do is like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way I know that you want more, and that way you also don't miss them as and when they drop. Now until the next video, you guys enjoy the Game Pass service, and maybe you might enjoy Redfall. I'll leave that up to you. But until the next one, take care.